I was saying we're like the only two people in the United States that aren't going to get hit with this storm right now.
I heard there's a crazy one in like North Carolina even.
Yeah, it's everywhere from like New Mexico, Texas, all the way up through Pennsylvania. It's literally
Like,
everybody except us.
nice.
I know
Nice.
it's lucky there, which is crazy because usually you and I are the only ones that get hit with that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I mean, I feel like everyone's all over kind of the world right now too. I feel like since the craziness of New Year's, I feel like it's been such like an insane like ramp up for like even events. Like there was Davos going on, and then there was like the billion creator summit in Dubai, and then there was, I mean, the Creator Economy Live was in Vegas. But I always kind of forget in January that people like kick off fast,
Yeah,
like so fast.
really.
Like you kind of right, you kind of go in this like lull for the New Year's and the holiday, and then January is just like boom, 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 and it's kind of crazy coming everything coming from these events that really kind of like kind of shape like 2026.
Yeah. You and I always talk about our Monday sprint, how after the weekend, like everything hits on Mondays. It's like the Monday sprint of the year. It's January's
They are letting me of the year, and everyone's planning like all the calls this month. It's like, so what are you planning for 2026? Like, what's going on? Like, people are already looking to like summer and like planning our events in the summer. It's like just crazy how fast kind of everything goes. But I think everyone in America is just getting hit with storm. So
maybe that's forced people to slow down a little bit. We'll see.
right now, so much is happening for AI wars from the hardware layer and NVIDIA and chips and the battle there, all the way up for the models and LLMs like coming together, all the way up to the application level, I feel like it's just like an all-out raw, a new release every day. It's like hard to keep up. Like ChatGPT came out with health a couple weeks ago, and like you couldn't even breathe. And then there's like the next thing, like that was huge. Like that release a couple years ago would be like the biggest thing ever. And now it's just like a blimp in the radar. I think everyone right now is asking like, who is going to come out on top? What's next? Like, what's happening in this race? And you and I have been discussing how it's so fun to look at past tech revolutions in order to decide what's going to happen with this particular one. Because right now it's like so hairy. It's hard to know who's going to come out on top. Like you say, this company and they come out with a new LM model better than the other ones or better than anything. And so I think there's a cool opportunity here to look back on like what's been done and kind of those timeless business lessons of the past we can look towards to kind of give us that crystal ball and who to win today. So would love to hear from you, Katie. Like, what are those timeless business lessons that we can learn from past winners of tech revolutions in order to kind of understand who's going to come out on top in the AI wars?
It's a really great way to pose it because ultimately AI is such a new concept. You know, the past couple of years has just flipped everything on its back. But good business is always going to be good business. Human strategy, human psychology is not going to change. The AI does throw a wrench in a lot of that, but ultimately those good practices are the same. So I love the idea of looking back at some of these. I think the first thing that stands out to me is the difference between being the first at something versus being the best at something. We look at Google versus Yahoo at the beginning, right? And how Yahoo was the first to categorize the internet, be some sort of a search for finding things on the internet when it was in its early stages. And they were the first, and for a while they were the best until Google comes along, turns it into an algorithm, and then they become the best and they take over. And now they're so big that it's the verb now that we use is don't go search something, you just go Google it, right? So they have become the best. So I think keeping in mind that who is currently or who in the past has been the first doesn't mean that's gonna who's going to be coming out as the best in the end. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. I think the Google Yahoo is a great example. I think Nokia in like the smartphone era is a great example. They're like phones with like a screen, like that's just kind of like toy. Like no one really wants that. And then for sure, like as we all know today, iPhone's like way ahead. But I think it's also interesting to look. Microsoft, for example, like kind of missed out like on the smartphone era, but they came back into like first place with this whole like kind of capitalizing cloud computing. So there's this kind of obviously some underlying, like a lot of times if you're first, you're not going to be the winner because you're kind of the ones that came out kind of the scapegoat of like, here is some way to do it. And then the next runner up can be like, okay, these are the good parts, but these aren't as good and customers want even better. Like, I think this is an interesting thing what's going to happen with AI chips. Like right now, NVIDIA is number one by far. Like 90% of like chips for AI today is being used by NVIDIA. But the H100s and these chips that came out were not originally even for AI. They were for gaming and the other use cases, and they've really been kind of jarred together. And so now we see Google's TPUs and different technology really kind of come in and trying to win the chip war. And so NVIDIA is like an example of one, the first one. But now they have market share, so they can probably go in and develop and kind of build faster. But I think we see examples of people who were first and won, people who were first and like really kind of fell on their faces. And I think there's a couple key things that is the kind of reason why. I think one, the person who wins is always very flexible to consumer feedback. So if consumers like I hate, for example, the Yahoo or MSN search things where there's just like ads everywhere. It's not a clean interface. Where Google, it looks so nice. Same with MySpace. Like it was just so like clunky and people don't like it. So I really liked how Facebook was so sleek. And so I think if you can be constantly understanding what the consumer wants and not just like laying into your morals of like the cash cow that you have, they become so good that you're a default. I think that's amazing. And then also keeping up with like speed as number 2 and distribution as number 3. Like if you can keep fast and iterating and then also keep the distribution of like a lot of customers and be able to give them the new things, I think that's really where a lot of the opportunities have kind of lie. I think another question kind of following up on this is kind of pitfalls that AI leaders should avoid here. So basically we were like, okay, these are the things that AI leaders should do to keep up, but what are some of the things that AI leaders should not do in order to like fall behind as this AI war continues?
Yeah. You brought up a good point with Microsoft, with Azure. I think companies should not be afraid to pivot and to pivot fast. I know it's so hard, especially like as you and I know as founders, when you build this thing and you're proud of it, you love it, you're known for a certain thing, it's hard to pivot into something totally different. But I think it's key that you're looking at not what's doing well right now, but what's doing well in the future, what the direction is headed. Microsoft, for example, didn't totally keep up in the mobile game, but they saw a pivot coming on the horizon. They pivoted fast. And now Azure is one of the biggest parts of the company. Like without Azure, they would be almost nothing. So I think not being afraid to look to the future, let go of the baby you've created if you need it. And that's, I think, going to be super key. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a couple different things that are easy to name as pitfalls that leaders fall into, like complacency, like resting into your morals, like I said, and really kind of the bloat and complexity of platforms today. It's we're like $1 trillion company. It's really hard to like pivot. That's why a lot of times these startups really come in and do something new. But on the other hand, we always talk about how these large incumbents have so much money that they can lean into new things. But I think the companies that will continue to win have really these like startup AI research centers like within their companies of people who are thinking outside the box. I think the next wave of AI is going to be something new and outside the box and different and it kind of reminds me of when we first got our iPhones and we first got apps. Like the idea of being able to like ping something and get an Uber to your front door is like how did that come to be? And I feel like we haven't gotten that moment yet with AI. We're on like still level 1 where we're having chatbots and sure AI agents that are being able to take some actions on their own account. But we haven't yet got to that Uber app where we're kind of like, how did this evolve into that? That's crazy. I understand. But I think the companies and the big companies are going to be able to kind of step back from their own like complacent thinking and really think outside the box. Like what's the next era of AI, and test and iterate and test and change are really going to be the ones that are going to kind of emerge into what's new. I think you can kind of think about that at every level of the tech stack, whether that's in chips and hardware, even earlier on in power when it comes to just like the nitty gritty bits of AI, all the way up to the LLMs and all the way up to the chip, all the way up to the application layer. And my question for you is, I think there's a lot of different questions about the AI wars and what's happening and stuff. And I think if you were a founder or a top AI leader in the world right now, really deciding on the future of the AI tech, where would you lean in now? Where do you think is the biggest opportunity for market share? And where is all that like value really concentrating today when it comes to like chips, models, application layer? Where do you think the opportunity is today?
I think the opportunity at this point is going to be specification. So going into a specific vertical, focusing wholly on that vertical. We see these big generalist players. We have OpenAI, we have Claude, we have even Gemini, some of these, they're great at this general LLM. I don't think we're at a point where any small players are going to come in and beat that at this point. I think they've kind of locked in the generalist category. But I think we haven't seen these really great deep dives into specific verticals. You mentioned Uber and how it was just this fascinating thing to send a message on your phone and then have it come to you at your door. I think that point where it takes it from the device, like from inside the AI itself, and becomes something external, that's that differentiator there. And I think that's something we haven't totally seen in many verticals yet. So I'm thinking specific models for finance, for the like medical field, the legal field, all these verticals that we have a lot going on in marketing and in sales and in design and coding. But there's a lot of these untapped areas that we don't generally think of as related to tech, but I think could have the most impact on tech, especially when I think about the medical field, the multi-billion trillion dollar industry that we have barely tapped the surface in what AI can do. There's a lot of great companies out there starting to develop these things. I think that's going to be the differentiator this year is focusing in on the specific context of that vertical.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's fascinating. I think when kind of capturing the value of who's going to capture the value next, I really love the visual that Jensen Wong laid out as like a cake that shows like the levels of AI, whether it's like the hardware level, the LLM layer, the application layer. And recently bought a birthday cake, right? It was birthday cake. It was really cool decorated. And it kind of reminds me as kind of take a step back right now. I feel like the birthday cake is mostly cake. Like it's all like the inside, like the hardware layer, everything like that. Like most of it's cake. There's not that much frosting on it. But I think the application layer is really shown in the icing level of it, where it's not really a lot of the tech stack. Like it's not a ton of the value that's really built up in the AI ecosystem. But the icing really is what connects you to the customers. If you, I could be the best cake in the world, but if it's icing and it looks terrible, no one's gonna buy that cake. If they're like, no, that's ugly. I don't really care. I can't bring that to the birthday party. And so I think the application layer has a lot of the power when it comes to the pricing and the user retention and the way that it's presented and the people use it. And I think the next kind of level here is really kind of optimizing at the application level. Like we're just getting started here when it comes to applications and the way we can use AI beyond just ChatGPT and chats and even kind of AI agents. And I think this is where a lot of the opportunity is because the players have connections to the users, have all the power, like all the power. They can plug and play whatever model that they want. And then those models can plug and play any chip that they want to build out the models. But the application layer really has the connection to the customers. And that is really like a timeless business advice for building any company. Let's say you're wanting to be a vendor inside of the Microsoft system. It's really hard to become a vendor. So a lot of times you'll partner with vendors already in the system to work with Microsoft. But if you're not already in the system working with Microsoft, then you can be cut out of the deal at basically any point. And I feel like LLMs and some of these different folks that are inside the cake have a little bit more of that issue of they could kind of be cut out of deals at any point, especially as these LLMs are commoditizing. And so I think as let's say, ChatGPT is really the application layer of OpenAI, these customers, these companies, Google has their bar and has like their AI on the application level too. The companies that could really just permeate at every single opportunity for customers on the application level is really going to be like kind of a huge opportunity in the next couple of years. But I don't know. Do you agree on that? What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think it goes hand in hand with what we briefly mentioned earlier that a key business tenet is to A, know your customer, B, listen to your customer. You have to know on this application layer what is the actual context of use and what is the actual value there? What's the problem you're trying to solve? It goes back to those basic business facets. If you aren't being the best at solving the problem that your customer has, there's no point in it. It's just a pretty piece of code that you've written. It's all about what
Yeah.
can you actually do for them.
Yeah, I think something interesting that you said that I kind of want to ask a question around is you said right now, it feels like a lot of like the big players are locked in. Like there's not a lot of opportunity. Like it feels like the field is still, we still have no idea who's going to win, but it feels like there's certain players people are kind of betting on. My question to you is where is the opportunities for companies to come in today? A, are there any? B, what do those look like? C, what do you think like in the next couple of years? Is it still going to be those same couple of companies, or do you think there's going to be new ones kind of coming in and having new kind of ChatGPT moments?
Yeah. I think it boils down to like two parts. One, as I mentioned, the specification and what they're building and really narrowing into a specific vertical. And then I think the second part comes in when they're partnering with these bigger companies. You briefly mentioned it within the vendor marketplace for Microsoft, but I think it applies to this bigger war we have going on in the application layer and also the LLM layer. I think that if you're a smaller company trying to get in all of this, partner. We've seen the big partnerships, like we know OpenAI has partnered with Microsoft, and we've got a couple other big partnerships possibly brewing. NVIDIA is partnering with a lot of different companies. But I think partnering and working your way up the ladder that way is really powerful. We look at AMD, for example. They have been partnering to grow, and they're not at the NVIDIA level, but they are growing really rapidly. And I think that could be their in to be a major, not just competitor, but a major force to be reckoned with in the chip landscape. I think the same thing applies to these application layers. We've seen partnering across the board in all industries, right? And it's a powerful way to get the name out. If you can start off small and work your way up that way, get your name out, get recognized, get the mutually beneficial deals that are working back and forth with each other, I think that's the way to go here. What would you add?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're kind of in an era of like it's never been easier to build, therefore never easier to grow. And I think we're also entering an era too where we're going to see a lot of acquisitions too. I think at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, we can have these big teams that have internal folks that are researching and thinking of new tools and new ways to use AI. But a team of, let's just say 50 still has nothing on, an industry of 500 million, just like thinking of new AI tools and bringing up new stuff. Like you can never compete 50 versus humanity. And so I think there'll be a kind of a cool opportunity now of even if it's like the newest AI tool isn't building as big as Microsoft off the bat, because think like OpenAI has even partnered with Microsoft to get to that point. I think there's a lot of cool opportunities to build and then be acquired by companies to kind of build into their new application layer. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you touched a lot on kind of more specific and even as like small language models. I think that's a really cool opportunity, like to really plug those into like the most leading cutting edge science research facilities where they plug their information of things they're finding that aren't found on these general LLMs. Because as we all know, those were trained on the entire internet. And the entire internet is not like the smartest bunch. Like it's really like the average person
There's a
writing
reason you don't believe everything you read online.
exactly, but believe everything out of the LLMs. I don't know, So I feel like the LLMs today are just kind of a jumble of everything that's out there on the web, which is good and bad. And so when you're wanting an LLM to be like really amazing at science or really amazing at math, even like where's the math language models? I think there's a lot of opportunity on those. And I think some of these bigger players have so much money and so much need and want to just like basically scoop everything up. Like at this point, it's like all hands on deck to like buy anything, any market share, anything to stay ahead, because no one wants to be like the next Yahoo where they fall behind. Like, sorry, Yahoo, but like it's kind of like everyone wants to do as much as they can. I think that's also comes with like acquiring companies. And I think that's kind of when we're talking about like business and like talking about like the essence of AI and how it's going to be the future. I think kind of the whole idea around new business models kind of starting to pop up here and there. Like in the past, we always had traditional SaaS and like a light like seat licensing and things like that. But I think it is interesting to see what type of business revenue models are popping up now and which ones are to come. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on any business models that are kind of starting to arise right now, or anything that you can envision that's going to come kind of in the AI era.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see, like you said, a lot of new things we haven't thought of before. The first thing that pops in my mind, I don't know if this would work. I'm just totally speculating here, but something I would love to see tried again within the AI world is the crowdfunding model. I'm thinking about Wikipedia. And I know everyone rags on Wikipedia all the time because every year around Christmas time, you go to look something up and you get the little pledge $5 to save Wikipedia today. Like, I don't know. I haven't looked into if those work or not, but I just think it's such a fascinating model for funding a major site that so many people use. And I'd be really curious to see not a pledge format, but more of a pay as you use format. I know that it's a really big thing with we see everywhere like the GoFundMe's and a lot of these different just monetary donation models, and I think it would be really fascinating to see, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see sometime soon a startup that's just, "Hey, this is our idea, this is what we stand for, this is what we believe in. Fund us, help us go if you believe in it too." I think that that could have a lot of power.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, that's how OpenAI started. Like, it was a nonprofit, and people literally donated money to make it happen. And it's like kind of, not everyone's happy about how that kind of landed on. But so that's really how AI started. And I think you said an interesting point about usage-based pricing. I think that's huge right now. Like, people are no longer wanting to just pay like X amount per month. Plus, it's like actually not great. Because doing calls to the AI and to the hardware and to like LLMs it's a lot of money. Like, the calls is a lot of money. And sometimes a subscription, traditional, which is like pretty normal, like if a power user can actually say $20 a month, they could actually rack up $600, $700, $800 worth of, API calls. Whereas I think now there's kind of this rise of this new usage-based pricing, which I think is really fascinating. Another thing I think is going to be interesting too is like everyone's like speculating it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon, but ads for ChatGPT, which is going to be really interesting. I think they're already discussing on like basically how to do this best. Like if you start having ads pop up and like your actual results, there's sometimes like a lack of trust there. And so I think I'm not surprised that ChatGPT and OpenAI is doing this very wisely and not just sticking it in there, because I think there's a big opportunity with sponsored. But I think it's going to really make maybe even pop up on sidebars, kind of like with like traditional websites. But I also think there will be some sort of in chat shopping. Like there's already some of that kind of coming around with, I know Walmart's partnered with, I can't remember if it's OpenAI or with who, maybe Google, but like where they, like you can basically chat and buy right away, which is really teetering into the sponsored results. So that I think will be a big way that AI is kind of monetizing this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. And I'll be really careful so I don't lose customers if it feels too spammy, but also capitalize, because at this point, a lot of these companies aren't even revenue plus, like revenue profitable, because it costs so much money to build them. So,
and I think OpenAI too is treading carefully because one of the things that they've done really well is the interface is just so clear. It reminds me of Google where you pop on and there's nothing there except a hi, what's up today? Or how can I help you? Or what's on your mind? And that's it. It's clean, it's simple. And I think that's a draw to people. And it was a draw to people from the beginning. It's very non assuming, it's very simple, it's clean, it's not mentally overwhelming. So that when you go there to easily look something up or easily get information about something, there's very little friction mentally. So I think adding the ads in, regardless of how clear they show that it's an ad and not a paid result that someone's giving. I think that that will definitely cause an impact, but also at the same time, makes sense that it's necessary. I think it was sometime last year that someone came out that's at head and OpenAI and said, we never expected people to use it as much as they do. And it wasn't to panic, but they were a little like, oh, wow, like this has grown way faster than we thought it was going to grow. And the infrastructure to have something growing so quickly, it makes sense that they need an additional way to fund it until things take off and go to the next level. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I heard a good take too that having ads in ChatGPT will actually make it more accessible for all. Because right now it is so expensive to run. And so really, if they want to be profitable, that thing might cost like $2,000 to use a month, which, not everyone can pay $2,000 a month to use ChatGPT. So if they do have ads, it actually makes it more generally available to kids who are in college or kids who are in more emerging nations. Like I think that's actually a part of, we don't want it to be all cluttered. We want to just like pay our way, but like not everyone can pay their way. So I think it actually gives an opportunity for folks across the world to continue using the technology, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely agree there.
Yeah. So my question here now is like, we've talked a lot about like what's happening in the landscape of AI, but like just asking you straight up, like, who do you think is going to win the AI war? Is it going to be like winner takes all or most? Do you think there's going to be many winners? Who's going to be the winner? What do you think?
I think that we're gonna see, especially later in the game, a lot of merging. A lot of these companies merging together, creating these conglomerates. But I do think we'll have more than one winner in the end. I could see it ending up being a general bipartisan fight between two big general companies, so whether that's OpenAI and Google with Gemini or OpenAI with Anthropic. We'll see kind of how that plays out. But then I think going into these smaller verticals, we will see winners in every vertical and possibly one or two per vertical. I don't think we're looking at one company here who's going to do all of it. Just as how, especially nowadays with smartphones, we of course have the big ones. We've got Apple and Android, but we have all these smaller ones that are rapidly gaining popularity. And I think as companies develop the different abilities that the technology has, we'll see even more diversification, even more winners per niche. So that's my guess. Also,
Yeah. Yeah, I think my two winners I think that are going to come about is one, Google. I think they just have such a huge user base that they can start plugging it in. How did they? I think they're going to really win the application level. On the same side, like they're building out their TPUs. Like I think they're just basically building like from the whole verticalized AI stack that allows them to like really build and grow and get out of the weeds with like the NVIDIA and like all of those like competitions. I think they're going to kind of come out ahead. My second big winner, I think, is going to be Tesla and Elon. The reason why I think that is, for one, like the things that they're doing with self-driving and like the humanoid robots, I think is just something that's like so new, and they're so far ahead of a lot of different companies, especially even like the value and like kind of the quality of their cars. But I think on the same reason, I think the winner of the AI race will be someone who can really think outside the box around how AI could really just revolutionize how we work. I think it's like been like small steps to kind of change how we work, but it's really been like kind of modeled off of the way we've done things. And I think Elon has a really good mind to really just think outside the box and lead the manufacturing effort. I think he will be someone that will really be a game changer in building. And sure, he already has Grok. Like he already has all, he has really like built this like AI power kingdom already. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see how he continues to build and grow. On top of that, like, I mean, sure, like for example, Apple won the phone race, but inside of the Apple ecosystem, there's a ton of apps that have like kind of built and grown too. When you think of like the internet and Google and stuff, you can think of like a Figma and Canva and design, or a Shopify for websites. Like those are also winners too. Like sure, they're not Google, but like I think there's a ton of like smaller winners that have popped out in the internet era that will mimic like this like Google and Tesla like giants, and then underneath that there'll be tons of companies that are going to win too. So that will be really interesting to kind of see how they all play out. My last like kind of like thoughts or biggest loser, which is I need to explain, is I think it's going to be NVIDIA, only to the fact that right now they have 90% of the chip market, and you can't go up from there. Like, what are they going to get? 91 to 92? Like I think that they're going to go from 90, and maybe they land at that like 65%. You know, usually there's like that 65, and then there's like a 30, and there's like 25. Like maybe they land at like that 65, but it's still like a 25% drop, which is crazy. So I think the biggest loser will probably be NVIDIA, not because they are a loser at all. They could still end up at number one, but just I think in terms in like just kind of total market share.
yeah, I agree. I think adding on to those thoughts about biggest winner, I think key to being a winner coming in all this craziness is the ability to create your community around what you're doing. We know, like, we're already starting to see these divides now that all the LLM models are kind of converging upon like a same level of ability. We're starting to see these little factions almost of the ChatGPT users that are so loyal, the Gemini and the Nano Banana users that are so loyal, the Grok users that are so loyal, and even into these other niches. We have like the Canva people that are just obsessed with Canva. We see it on all these different niches, these different verticals. And I think that the ability to create a dedicated community to your product, whether that's through general community, whether that's through the developers and the open APIs behind what you're doing. I'm thinking like Metalama, for example. I think creating that community is going to be a huge differentiator to put you above because as the models, come and go and who's doing better, who's doing new things, having that loyalty is going to keep you up and up and up because it's not just you talking about your product anymore, it's your loyal fans talking about your product and trying to get people to, "Hey, I know you use ChatGPT, but I just really love that Grok is able to do this," or vice versa. So I think that's going to be really key and that we're gonna see a lot more of that community-focused, growing in the coming year.
100%. Like I totally agree. It's all comes down to that distribution and the community. And that's where even like creators play in too. Like wish like companies kind of bring them into their environments and like bring them on board, how like creators and residents. Like I think that will be just so huge. I think that kind of that capitalization on the creator economy and bring them in really to establish that distribution to win the application layer, which wins the AI war. I think it all just goes hand in hand. So I think it's a really good point.
Yeah. Yep, we will see. I'm curious to
Yeah.
revisit this in a year and see what actually happens.
Oh my gosh, seriously. We'll have to do another one at the beginning of 2026 and be like, what's the vibe of like the AI wars right now? Because it's just moving so fast. Like it'd be kind of fun to kind of do that. But yeah, great conversation. And yeah, we'll touch back on these predictions and the beginning of 2026.
That'll be great. Bye.